Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle, and I've got a great episode here today for you guys. This is what I like to call my new album spotlight, where I spotlight a new release in the prog world that I think is worthy of recommending to all of you out there. If you're interested in more prog album recommendations, please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you guys on board. I try to promote and talk about all of the best prog releases that I've uncovered, and I hope it's kind of a good place for you to discover great music that is happening now, just as good as the classics from back in the 70s prog era. So please subscribe if you haven't yet, and for those of you who have subscribed, thank you once again as always for your support, and hopefully you'll enjoy this episode. So today we're talking about Porcupine Tree's new album Closure/Continuation, which has been all the buzz on the prog news streets in my realm of what I've looked at and from my social media and such. Seems like this is a pretty major album that everyone's kind of talking about, and there's a lot of different opinions about it. Some people are high on it and very positive. Some people are more negative, kind of viewing it as a bit of a cash grab from the band. But I'm, of course, more on the kind of positive end of the spectrum, because I think it's just a fantastic addition to their catalog and really has been a lot of fun diving into, and I think it's just of really high top quality and showcases a band almost at the top of their game. Just a really great combination of songs here, and it shows great promise for this group, which I hope this isn't the closure of the band. I hope there's some continuation here, because there's so much promise, so much great music, and it would be a shame for them to not continue with this momentum that they're building. So some quick background on the release. It's been quite a long break between releases here. Their last album came out in 2009, and that was, of course, The Incident, which received maybe mixed reviews as well at the time, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty high on it. I think it's a really great album that's a little bit underrated, but a lot of people thought it wasn't up quite to the same quality as some of their previous releases, like Fear of a Blank Planet and Deadwing and In Absentia, which were kind of a trilogy of albums that were very highly regarded and kind of cemented them as kind of a legendary prog group to many people. But they kind of took a break after The Incident, and a lot of people kind of assumed that the band maybe wasn't going to return, that was kind of the ending of the group, because Steven Wilson, of course, went on to have a very prolific solo career from that point forward, has created many notable progressive releases that have been really highly esteemed by the prog community, by me as well. You know, of course, Hand Cannot Erase and The Raven Who Refused to Sing are just two masterpieces to me of the modern progressive rock era. But at least I assumed that Steven Wilson was kind of getting all he needed creatively and musically through his own solo works, and I just thought, you know, it probably wouldn't happen. Porcupine Tree was probably finished, but it seems like behind the scenes they were still collaborating, still working on this material, and basically announced their return as a group back last year. You know, it's been kind of a long lead up to this album. They released the opening track Harridan as a single, which kind of, for me at least, came out of nowhere. I just didn't expect that kind of announcement, so it was huge news at the time when they released the track, and that it was teasing an upcoming album and an upcoming tour. And I just was really excited about it. I'm thrilled to have a band that I love back and making new music. You know, I don't really get into the politics of, like, you know, what's their reasoning? Is this like just them trying to make a quick buck and rest on the laurels of their past? I don't really think of it like that. I just think of it as a group of creative individuals who work well together, coming together to make some great new music. And I think the album has just so much great killer material on it. Every track on it stands out to me. Of the New Day was the second track, a great single as well that kind of showcases more of a lighter feel, more of a ballad type, beautiful kind of classic Porcupine Tree sound with a little bit of Steven Wilson's kind of newer aesthetic kind of bleeding in, because I think what's cool about this album is that it takes kind of a lot of the classic Porcupine Tree sound throughout their career. You know, there's some more atmospheric kind of psychedelic moments similar to their old, like, first 2 or 3 albums, and then there's some like kind of poppier, kind of more ballad-esque, you know, great uplifting, beautiful melodies, similar to kind of their mid-period, like Stupid Dream, Lightbulb Sun era, you know, kind of like this track Of the New Day, and also the bonus track Never Have, which is another kind of beautiful pop-centric ballad. And then kind of also their heavier material that they kind of ushered in within Absentia and continued forward with Deadwing and Fear of a Blank Planet, of course. And of course, Wrath's Return has a really awesome, heavy, dark riff. Herd Culling has some really heavier sections as well. And it kind of runs the gamut between highlighting all of these classic eras of the band, but also inserting new stuff from the projects that the band members have been a part of since this kind of hiatus from the band. So to me, it's just a really great combination of all of this stuff mixed in a great stew and put together in such a great package. And the production values are excellent. Of course, with Steven Wilson, that's almost a given at this point. He just produces such great sounding albums, and this is no exception. Harridan it just really pops as the opening track with that great killer bass groove and drum rhythm, and it just continues on and just hits you over the head with that kind of dark, menacing kind of sound. I just really love it from the group. It's just has a really energetic and cool chorus as well, and some great creative drumming from Gavin Harrison, and some great atmospheric keyboards from Richard Barbieri, who is just such a fantastic presence on this record, kind of the unsung hero to me of this album, and just his soundscapes that he brings, all the atmospherics, and just some really killer keyboard playing and soloing in certain sections as well. Just he really puts a mark on this album, and so it's just a master class from three superb musicians who are, in my estimation, kind of at the top of their game, really, at their ability levels. One of my favorite absolute tracks is Dignity. Maybe this is partly because, maybe my only minor criticism, and I've said this before, I think, in previous reviews of things, and I blame myself more than the band or anything else, is that almost half this record, or 4 out of the main 7 tracks from the album were released as singles before the album came out. So I felt like a lot of this album felt familiar already because I'd heard the singles, and I kind of wish there was more like new material to dig into. And so it was really exciting to reach a new song like Dignity that really stood out because it's one I hadn't heard yet. And I just think it's a beautiful, excellent song. One of my favorite songs of the year. Just has kind of some great light atmospheric ambient sounds before the guitar kicks in and you get that great vocal melody. It kind of infuses that more poppier Wilson influence like the Beatles or ELO or something like that, something you might have heard earlier in their career, the Lightbulb Sun era, but it still hinges on some darker themes. But I think what the band does really expertly, and what Steven Wilson does really expertly as a writer, is he covers a lot of darker topics. He has darker themes throughout his music, but he juxtaposes that with kind of these sometimes sunny harmonies and melodies that are just beautiful and achingly majestic. And I think it really is an interesting dichotomy between these two kind of worlds that he inhabits, of this beauty but this darkness, and that they can kind of coexist in a manner of speaking, I think is really interesting. And there's just such a great middle instrumental break here with some keyboard magic, which is just so perfect and beautiful. Just some great melodies in the piano and acoustic guitar and harmony in the vocals. Just really a beautiful track. Herd Culling is another one of the singles that was released, but this is a more expanded version of the track, which I think really makes it that much better and improves it in such a great fashion. Some great harmonies, some great kind of heavy riffs. I love the kind of catchy chorus melody. I think it's really excellent. Sounds like something that could come off of like an Absentia era of the band. Walk the Plank is another track that was not released as a single and has a more electronic feel. Once again, kind of harkening back to kind of the earlier era of the band, perhaps, with some Floydian atmosphere. Really interesting track. It really kind of stands out to me as something that's different than a lot of the other more guitar-centered tracks that come before it. But I think it's a really great breather at this point of the album before we get into the big kind of more epic track, Chimera's Wreck, which is fantastically beautiful. Starts off with some really great acoustic guitar style playing with these kind of arpeggios and just beautiful sound. It kind of harkens back like to The Watchmaker from the Raven album from Steven Wilson. Before, about halfway through, it kind of morphs into more of like a heavier song with some interesting instrumental stuff, some proggy rhythms and guitar riffing. and it just continues on in such an interesting manner, constantly kind of changing and shifting and giving you all that you want to hear from kind of a little mini epic at the end of the album. It's just a beautiful track to end things on. And then it doesn't end there, because there's 3 excellent bonus tracks as well, which I wish were included on all versions of the album. I know that on the standard vinyl, these aren't included, and you kind of have to go search them out elsewhere. But to me, they're just of the same high-level quality as all the rest of the material on the album. You know, I think from what I've heard in interviews and such, I don't think it was really, well, these are 3 lesser tracks. I think it was just they wanted... I think Steven Wilson likes kind of a shorter album format, and so they just kind of cultivated a track list that kind of was under a certain time frame, and then all the extra tracks they just kind of put as bonus tracks afterwards. But they're all fantastic. Population 3 is just an incredible instrumental jam that goes through so many different musical styles and feels, once again, kind of fits the darker theme of the album, with kind of some darker melodies. But it's really a great showcase for their playing, especially Gavin Harrison, who's just excellent on drums here. Never Have is more kind of in that beautiful kind of poppier single kind of territory. Really beautiful piano melody at the start, but it does have an interesting kind of proggier instrumental section halfway through, so there's always something interesting going on to kind of break it up and to infuse different things into the mix. And then Love in the Past Tense is one of my favorite songs from the whole collection here. It's just, it kind of stands out because it sounds a bit different than everything else. It starts out with this really different sounding kind of sparkly guitar playing, leading into Steven Wilson singing such a strong, great, beautiful melody. There's some awesome rhythm from Gavin Harrison, and it really sounds like the band evolving and doing something a bit different. It has almost a sunnier, a more positive vibe in just the sound of it compared to a lot of the tracks that come before that kind of live more in that darker kind of realm. So just a really great selection of tracks. Everything stands out to me. Every track has its identity and has kind of its own unique quality. I think this album's a great combination of like all of the classic stuff from the band throughout their career, you know, hitting on all these different aspects that you've come to know and love from them, but also infusing it with some of the stuff they've learned from their time away from Porcupine Tree, from their other projects. I feel a lot of Steven Wilson's solo kind of bleeding through in this, which I love. I'm a fan of his solo work, so I think that's only a positive. And it just sounds like the band is really gelling together in a fantastic way and have great chemistry. They've been kind of staying in touch throughout this hiatus. There's reports from their different interviews that Gavin Harrison and Steven Wilson especially kind of came together and worked on stuff together. I know there's kind of this... one of the aspects that people continue to talk about is that Colin Edwin, who was their previous bass player, is not included in this project, and Steven Wilson takes on the bass duties on the album, and people are speculating why that might be and why is he not a part of this, but it just seems like it just didn't really match up, and he just wasn't really into the idea of the project, and they decided to continue on as a threesome. But what we have here is excellent. I am really pleased to have this band back in my life. One of my favorite bands that really shaped my musical tastes as I was developing in kind of that early 2000 period and trying to find the music that spoke to me. You know, I discovered Spock's Beard, I discovered Flower Kings and Dream Theater, but I heard such great things about In Absentia. I went to the record store and went and bought a copy, having not heard a note of it, and was just blown away the moment I played Blackest Eyes. I was just, sounds so crystal clear and pristine, and it's just such a beautiful track, and the album just proceeds in such a wonderful fashion. Still remains to this day one of my all-time favorite albums, so I'm never going to complain about having more Porcupine Tree in my life, and I hope this leads to more stuff from them, because I just will eat it all up because I'm such a huge fan. I'm not going to begrudge them. I hope they're successful in this endeavor, and you know, I'm just gonna love it for what it is, because that's what I do here. You know, I don't like to criticize things. I don't like to tear things apart, especially from established artists that I've already fallen in love with. So I unabashedly love this record. It's in contention for one of my favorite albums of the year, and I'm just thrilled to be able to continue listening to this, and I'm excited for my physical copy of the album to come to me. It hasn't quite arrived yet in the mail for me, but it's coming. It should be here next week, so excited for that to come. and to be able to hear it on that format as well. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this review and that you're enjoying the new Porcupine Tree album. And if not, that's okay too. You know, it's okay to like an album. It's okay to not like an album. And I just respect everyone's opinions, and hopefully that means you'll respect mine as well. So thank you guys so much. You are all so awesome out there, and I appreciate the comments and all that you guys do. And once again, please subscribe if you haven't yet, and I really appreciate the support. And I'm trying to build a good prog community where we can all share in recommendations and really just enjoy the music together as a community, and I hope that's happening. So thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys in another video. Bye everybody.
Wash up on the shore, don't need you no more. Chimera wreck will slip into the bottle lid.